At the center of the yard, I raised my head and Muhammad Ali was walking towards me. Time seemed to slow down as his eyes locked on mine and opened wide. He's raised his fist into a quintessential guard. I was game to play along with him, to act as if I was a worthy opponent. What an honor to be challenged by the GOAT, the greatest of all time, for a brief moment. His face was as serious as if I were Frazier in the Thriller in Manila. His movements or flashes of a past greater than I can imagine. His security let the joke play along for a second before they ushered him away. And I walked away floating like a butterfly. I walked away amused at him, amused at myself, amused at life for this moment that almost no one would ever believe. I walked away light, ready to take on the world. That is the magic of this place. Almost anything can happen here. Ain't you?
And that was Chadwick Boseman. I want to thank and welcome you all back to the Black Fathers Foundation and for our foundation's conversations. But before we get started, I wanted to kind of talk about that brother there who you hear so much about what he's done, what he represents to our community. But I wanted to show that clip because he was walking on campus one day and Muhammad Ali just walks up on you. And sometimes extraordinary things happen to ordinary people. And I always love that clip because I can imagine that happened to me and someone would basically say, "You didn't meet Muhammad Ali." But that type of story, that type of event shows the type of person Brother Chadwick was. He was a regular guy and he did some extraordinary things. He was a hero to the Black community. And today I want to make sure I speak to some unsung heroes, Black men in education. This is our foundation's conversation. The first person I want to introduce is Brother Victorius Hall, who's a teacher and a trainer. Welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, peace, man. I appreciate the invite. Thanks a lot, bro.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Our next guest panelist will be Sonata Edwards. He's a co-founder of Above It All. Welcome, brother. How are you?
Appreciate it, brother Barry. Doing well, doing well. Peace to everybody. Glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Our next guest is Mr. Gregory Brown, a music teacher and GBM Educational Services. What's good, man? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, man. Thanks for the invite. Glad to be here. Looking forward to talking to the folks.
Oh, man. See, look, I'm feeling the energy already, man. It's nothing but smiles all over the place. Folks are feeling it. Excellent, excellent. And Ken Patterson, assistant principal. Are you there, man? My man, how you doing? Yeah, there he is.
How you doing, man? So excited to be here. Thank you for the invite. Thank you so much.
The pleasure was all mine, all mine. And since I started off with Mr. Chadwick, I'm gonna ask all of you gentlemen here. And since I introduced you in order, I'm gonna kind of go in that order. Brother Victorius, what was your favorite Chadwick movie?
Man, it had, got to be Black Panther, man.
Yeah.
yeah. Black Panther was dope. I think it was just dope for our people. You know what I mean? I remember my son coming out of the theater. I'm not even a big superhero movie dude, right? Like, I know some people, they got like a cult following. So for me, just the experience of having that on camera, on this big screen was just amazing for me, man. I think he did an amazing job at the role too. You could tell that there was something behind the suit, like as a man, like he was able to embody that character in a way that was kind of unexplainable and left in a way feeling like you was the king, right? And I think that's what that movie should have did. The brother was an amazing brother, man. Everything that I read about him, his spirit just seems so aligned with what we need in our community, man. So, it's definitely a treat being taken away. You know what I mean? But it's a powerful brother, and I think his mark is gonna last. You know what I mean?
Indeed, indeed. Sonata, talk to me, brother.
Look, man, I would have to definitely agree with Brother Vic, man. It's got to be Black Panther. Got to be Black Panther. It's funny. Probably a few days before his passing, I was listening to a podcast. It's called like the Black Men Can't Jump in Hollywood podcast, where they talk about Black movies and whether these movies did anything for the culture. So I'm listening to this podcast, and they were just talking about. He was like, man, they were like, man, you know, I remember going into the movie theater and the feeling and the energy, and it took me right back to it. So I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, oh man, do you remember when we went to go see Black Panther, et cetera, et cetera? And you just remember like folks getting dressed up. Right, you had some folks rocking suits, some folks rocking dashikis. You know what I mean? The energy was crazy. Everybody going in, and you know, you getting the head nods. You might not know everybody, but it's like head nods, and you know what I'm saying, fist up in the whole nine. I mean, just the energy of it all was crazy. And I was just talking about that, especially in the middle of a pandemic, wanting to get back to that type of energy, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to see your folks, you know what I mean, and how things are obviously going to be different now. We're in this new norm, but again, the energy from Black Panther, man, the way, I think Brother Vic said it, man, the way that Chadwick Boseman embodied that character, man, it was like, you sit back and you hear everybody kind of putting the, can anybody else play Black Panther now? Like, who can we get to play Black Panther? And it's like, I don't know. He embodied that thing, and I mean, it was just amazing. So yeah, it's gotta be Black
Panther. Gotcha. Gregory, talk to me, man.
Well, man, for me, Black Panther was good, but I don't know if anybody know about that message from the king. The redemption, first of all, the whole story, the way they broke it down, and the love that he had for his sister, and the way he vindicated her. That was some classic, crucial, vicious stuff.
Right. That's Netflix, right? I saw it on Netflix, I think, and I was like, "Hey, where this come from?"
I know. Yeah. It's a sleeper, but it comes up and it grabs you because he tore the mess up out of everybody.
Look, remember that chain he wrapped around his hand? Yeah. Excellent. Ken, what's your favorite one?
Black Panther, man. I can't even play, man. I'm gonna bring it back to Black Panther. I just think because it was a moment in Black history. Really, it was. I don't think we'd fully appreciate it 20 years from now. It was that collective moment where nationally, like every Black person was on the set. We were high-fiving each other. You were waving at people at McDonald's. You went in, you see a Black person in the mall, you hit them up with this. So it was big on just us being proud of ourselves. Again, I think Chadwick Boseman on the screen did for Black people what I think Obama did as president, where for the first time we had a superhero. I don't know if you brothers remember growing up when you wanted to be a superhero for Halloween, you had to put on a white mask. You know, you got your black hands with the white mask, right? And so it also, for me as a father, gave my sons really a superhero that they can kind of look up to on the big screen, right? And so for Black kids, I remember that year, I shared it on my social media that year. I was teaching elementary school at the time, and the kids just wanted they wanted a hero in the school. So they were so desperate. I won't say desperate, but we lacked heroes so bad that my little makeshift Black Panther outfit that just was the face mask and the gloves and a black sweatpants suit I got from Walmart. I got the hairpins, the women hairpins, in the hair. That was my necklace. And I was in school. You could not convince the kids at that school that it was not the real Black Panther that had visited them. It meant so much. So I think that, and for me, it's just what it represented for all of us, but more importantly, for the first time, I think our kids finally had somebody they could look up to, man. So I think that was a moment in history for us.
Indeed it was. And I'll never forget. And I'll just throw in my little 2 cents. But for me, one of my favorites was the James Brown story, because that dude, at some point, I stopped seeing Chadwick, and all I could see was James Brown. And I mean, like, even down to the moves. And I watched the documentary on, he actually went and sat with his daughters and talked to them, and dancing, that was all him. Like, at no point did they had to cut out to anybody else bring it. He learned every single thing. He transformed himself, and I always respected his craft, because I know he's been around for years. If you go back, you can see him pop up at different places, but he had an amazing agent, and he has showed some amazing talent because he played these iconic roles. Jackie Robinson, and then
versatility for days.
versatility. He had range,
Thurgood
and
Marshall, yes.
Thurgood Marshall, absolutely, and he actually said that in one of his interviews, where in Black Panther, all those roles prepared him for Black Panther. He said if you watch when he walked in when he was meeting his sister and in his laboratory for the first time, he said that was a little James Brown swag right there. It was he took pieces of all of those characters and brought it in. So I wanted to show some love to Chadwick and segue into you guys, the unsung heroes, I like to say, because right now, and whoever wants to answer this first, I want to just chime on in, because I want to know someone or somebody I'm sure has reached out to you and said, I'm sorry for not taking or showing a seriousness for your craft, because my child at home, this is real. And you deal with this on a daily basis. I got only one, maybe two at home, and you got 20 in your class, and you dealing with this. I am sorry. Please forgive me, because I'm ready to get these jokers back to school. So I will support you, whatever. So has that happened to anybody yet?
20 times. I let the other guys go first. I got stories for days on this one.
Give me one story, man. Just give me one story.
Literally yesterday, I was in the grocery store, and a little child was being unruly. And of course, as a teacher, and I know the other fellas know this, if a child running across and ain't no parent, you're like, where the parent at? Little girl, sit down. You get 3 minutes. 1, 2, 3. Hey, bring it in, right? Had to catch myself and realize I'm at the grocery store and I'm not on to the mark. But educator's an educator. You know what I'm saying? A dad's a dad, a father's a father, a man's a man, period. And so.
Oh, you went mute.
I'm back on. No problem. So what I did was I looked at the lady behind me and I said, you know what? I'll be on tomorrow. I said, I'm a teacher. She said, oh, sir, you're a teacher. I'm so sorry. Like, it must be a lot for you. I said, ma'am, yes, it's a whole lot. It really is a lot. And she was like, oh, my girlfriends are teachers and all of the parents, and we just really value you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm like, hey, it's what we do. I love the kids. I love education. I want them to be educated. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through it. And it's going to be well, and our kids are going to learn. She was just so apologetic and thankful. So that's just one of many stories. I got many, many stories.
Excellent. Hey, and look, I have to, and forgive me, Sonata. Please forgive me for mispronouncing your name, brother. I'm sorry.
No, you good, brother. It's Tsanonda. You good.
Tsanonda, my bad, man. They even wrote it to me. It was like, yo, and they broke it down to me in plurals and everything. And I was like, oh, my bad.
That's superhero, man. That's superhero. Say that right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The fact that you got the pre-off. Thank you.
Well, you might as well go with your story, man. I know you got one.
Well, so it's interesting. So I'm no longer in the classroom. I'm going to get my organization. We actually work with young people. For the most part, we work with young people one-on-one, but we do like group sessions and things like that. And obviously not in person, but being a former educator, I taught kindergarten, I taught 4th grade. So being a former educator, I actually get it from all sides. I get parents, I get teachers, I get everybody who kind of come holler at me. Oh man, Tsanonda, man, listen, you wouldn't believe what happened to me today. You wouldn't, I just it's so crazy. And again, because we're in this virtual world now, and again, still having to work with our children. It's not easy. I actually literally just talked with my youngest son's mom. Shout out to Kim Green, another Morgan State graduate. She was talking about how different it is working from home and then being with our son, and how there are times when he wants to, hey mom, look at this, and she can't because she's at work also. So she's feeling that kind of like neglect that's going on. She's like, I feel like I'm neglecting him, but it's a matter of really just trying to get him to understand, look, we are in a new norm. It's a new norm. So my hat goes off to parents. My hat goes off to teachers, being able to make the transition from in classroom, because again, all these brothers here, man, I love these brothers. I've known them since Morgan, and it's like the energy was always up, and a big part of that is interacting with people, right? Like that interaction, you feed off of the energy, but it's not the same when it's in an online environment. You see some of your knuckleheads, they just sitting there watching the screen, like, man, whatever, man, win lunch. So you can't really feed off the energy like you normally do. So again, your hats have to go off to the teachers for fully just online. Then again, has had to go off the parents for being able to kind of navigate being at home, having to work, and then having to work with, again, not just necessarily one child. You might have 3 or 4 children, so they got to be in different spaces and all that type of stuff. So it's a new look. I definitely got to take my hat off to those who bought all the desks and got the equipment and got the kids' names on there. And
the whole set in the background.
You had the diamond win table, bro. But hats got to go off to those who creating that environment. So again, hats off to everybody, bro.
But we have to admit, it is a joy to put that unruly student on mute. You can't
do that. You can't do that in real life. You can't do that in person.
But it's nice to say, hey, Johnny, love you. And class continue. Yeah.
I would have never thought of that. Never. Yeah. I'm like,
teachers, we have memes about that all day long. Nothing but mute.
Oh, that's classic.
For me, it's funny because I remember when I first started teaching like years ago, when parents would get upset with you, they would say stuff like, "I'll have your job," I'll have your job, and now they like, "Can you take these kids back, please? Like, can you please take these kids?" Look, ain't nothing changed about this corona stuff. That ain't been no vaccine, ain't been no immunity, but they want take these kids, please take them back.
Yeah.
They got chances. They got chances. I'm like,
my bad. Bad.
Yeah,
definitely new appreciation.
Yeah, I think it's that thing for me, man. Like, and I'm an assistant principal now, so it's been like, it's different, right? Because the major job of an assistant principal is building relationships with the young people who struggle the most and being able to form relationships to kind of push them through, and also being like the instructional leader, right? But in distance learning, right? Like, nah, bruh, like you're not doing that really, because you can't interface, as Tsanonda was saying, with the young people. And being an instructional leader, like everybody fake and act like they know what to do. You don't know what to do in distance learning. People be faking like, oh, you do this. Like, you want me to observe? I ain't never done this a day in my life. I don't know what's going on. But the thing, right? And I always say to people, right? It's like educators, dog. Like we are the most adaptive.
Yes.
On the, like, I'm talking about at the drop of a dime. Now, like, I'm straight up IT support. I'm IT support. You know what I'm saying? I'm working with educators on figuring out. I'm reading different stuff like on a dime, and we making it work. So for that, and that happens all the time. Like, I can have my school moving in a way, and then I get 2 new students, change the whole trajectory. Right?
Yep.
Adaptation. So when I look at education and like what it really means to me, is like being able to like adapt. And that, I think, I always say, young, if you can do this job well, you can do any job in the world. I swear to God, I could be a rocket scientist. I can do anything, yo. Because, young, that's how well my brain works from being an educator.
And you know what's crazy about that? Just to kind of echo exactly what Victorius was saying, I think that's what makes it amazing about being college graduates. I'm thinking about what you just showed, Brother Barry, Brother Greg, showed Chadwick Boseman, HU, you know what I'm saying? Us going to Morgan State and graduating from there. A lot of times I feel like when you put that on your resume that you are a college graduate, it shows that you have the ability to learn. You have the ability to adapt. You know what I mean? Like, we took all these different classes. Yeah, we got into our major and knocked that out. But the fact that you have the ability to learn and you're able to make some things happen in different environments, again, graduating from college helps you do that. Yeah, you got the networking, which is extremely important. But again, showing that ability to learn, showing that ability to adapt, and then again, being an educator, oh man, it's nothing like it. Because again, you're literally on stage every day. You on stage every day having to figure out. And I love what VRC just said about everything could be going fine, everything going great, and then you add 2 extra students into the mix, and it completely changes the trajectory of what's going on.
What you thought? Okay, all right, figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
I have 2 things to add to that. The first thing is off of the education college thing. Is the reality of it is, see, at Morgan, we do a little bit more because of Black excellence. See, we not only did we have a great education, but we learned how to read, write, and speak, and we couldn't graduate without doing that on top of our majors. So that puts us a cut above. You know what I'm saying? I just want to throw that out there. For Morgan,
a different tier right there. There's, that upper echelon type.
Yeah, I know, and you're 100% right, because I had a chip on my shoulder in school, bro. Like, You talking about like I was reading heavy, trying to figure everything out, and I remember going to an Pan-African philosophy conference up in Brown University. I was in school when I teach
that gospel class. Yeah.
I don't want none of this. Y'all don't want no smoke. Like I'm like for real. So you get that excellent chip on your shirt. What? Huh? What you read? What you want? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
we have the book. We have the book right there at Morgan. You know,
Lord. That's right.
But I also wanted to say concerning the second piece that you made, Brother Victorius, that throwing the kids in the mix and us pivoting in different roles. Who would have known that as teachers and educators, we'd be movie producers now, we'd be audio producers, you know? We are doing so many jobs that really require lots of certifications, but we're pivoting and doing them and also connecting them for our students.
Yeah, it's straight out.
Only teachers do that. Like, that's amazing. Set designers now. You know what I'm saying? No offense, but this was a whole intentional set, you know?
The whole situation back there.
I mean, really. Like, me and my wife be playing this out.
You know, place, right? It's like, no, that's off. That's off.
I mean, yes,
my man got the light.
Look, my ring light is on order. I've been pressed for that since last year. I was pressed. I ain't nobody about to order it this week.
That's so funny. You talking. I'm looking at the tone like I think I'm a little too dark. I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah.
Set. Action. Let's go. Let's go.
Look, I'm gonna tell you right now. We doing part 2, fellas. We doing part 2. I don't even know what we're talking about. We're gonna do a part 2. Just because.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm in.
No, I do want to say to Victoria's point. I know I will go back to what he said, man, about just the adaptability. One of the things that I'm a middle school assistant principal, which means I need 2 prayers every night. So please pray for me
every night.
In case the first one don't go through. But what I had to, my thing is not just being an assistant principal, but to move into a new school district. So this year, I left the district that I had worked at for 16 years, moved into a new school district. And one of the things that as a Black educator, you have the leg up on is you really know how important relationships are. So in building relationship, that really becomes our strength, that one-on-one type of thing. And what's weird, as Brother Vic was talking about, what's weird for me is jumping into a new school, into a new system in a pandemic where I can't physically see these kids, right? So I'm still in charge of discipline and making sure all that is happening. But it's like, if I could just see this little kid, if I could just pull that brother aside and have a conversation with him, I got to put the Google link room in there and ask him to go to the other room.
Now, all right, does he go? That's why I want to know. Does he really go?
I don't know.
I bet you can go to that Fortnite. I bet you can get there. I bet you can get Fortnite. We'll have issues to get on that link. I can't find it. I don't know where it is. It doesn't all the way work. What's the Google code? Stop playing. You better not be on Fortnite today.
What they know how to do is get into classes that they're not supposed to be in and play some cards.
So so that's where I know that I'm a straight up kid, young, because people been getting mad about that, young. I'm like, young, these mamas are hacking Zoom rooms.
They're hacking Zoom.
Jumping in. They're rolling out. And yeah, I think that's what has helped me as a middle school administrator is I put my mind back into when I was like 12, 13.
Got you.
Imagine how much fun they having. Like
They're jumping in and out.
They going hand up and then just rolling out. Give my IP address. Nah.
They popping in. They playing Cardi B. The explicit version, and they bouncing.
Yeah.
Can you please call this house? Can you please call this parent? I'm laughing. Proud. I'm like, man, these kids are smart. They figured out how to get inside.
Yeah.
That's a career path.
But I'm glad you said that, right? Because a lot of times it's always seen as, but like that's a straight up career path. Because I don't have all the time to be figuring out how to change my names and IP addresses and move in so nobody can find out who I am. But so often it's criminalized, like the things that they're geniuses at. But it's just in middle school, right? They trying to figure the world out. And so what you got to figure out is how to capture that talent and use it for good. And that's what I've always said. Like the ones who the most off the hook and the most wild or willing to do anything, right? Capture that and then transform it into positivity. And that's how we build our community. That's what I've always
right.
You know what I mean?
That's huge.
You got to learn how to focus that talent, man, in the right direction, because they just be wilding out sometimes, right? They just like, look, man, I'm just trying to. Look, I don't know what I want to do right now, but you know what? What seems like fun?
Yeah.
Is jumping in here and cracking some jokes and jumping out.
Yeah.
So I gotta go back to this, and I learned this a couple of years back at the conference that I first met Brother Victorius at, was the impact of Black males teaching and how it changes the trajectory for students of graduating and completing school. I learned that statistic a couple of years back, and I never knew even. And I'm like, even from a mixed school, yep, it just takes it's a focus that happens when our students see Black men in these type of roles. So tell me, and I see you guys are doing different things outside of the school and in your communities. How has that affected you personally, especially with COVID? And you can't, and you touched on it a little bit, you can't touch them anymore. You can't physically, hey, come here, let me talk to you. How are you reaching out now?
Well, I'll start. I'll say one thing that I figured out that I had to do is really relationships should kind of lead the conversation. So for me, jumping into a meeting, the kids, what I realized, I do have a little clout just because I'm African American. So I just moved to this new school, which is about 30% African American. It's the first probably Black administrator any of these kids have ever had. So that alone, like when I pop in the classroom and they didn't know who I was, they were like, is that somebody's father? Like, who's that? Oh, that's the assistant principal. Oh, okay. And then I'll pull them aside and have a conversation with them. What it is that I've got to, it's a lot of conversational communication. It's a lot of conversational relationship building. Whereas when you're in the hall with them, it can just be a quick high five. It don't have to always be conversation. I'm finding myself having to do more speaking and talking and getting to learn kids and really pulling them out and spending more time with them than you would. And it's critical because you're having to ask them questions about themselves. You're trying to connect with them. Even if I don't I'm not a ball player. I'm not as good as Tsanonda on the basketball court. You know what I mean? I ain't made no teams, but the kids don't know that. So if they say they play basketball, I'm like, yeah, man, I play basketball too. yeah. And I'm trying to connect with them, even if it's artificial, even if it's like I'm just finding myself having to connect more with what they're saying when you're not in that space with them. Because when you're in a physical space, sometimes it's your soul, it's your aura, it's those things that connect, and the kids can feel that. They can feel that you like them. Outside of that, it's hard to feel that. So the only real way we can do it is through conversation. So I'm finding myself having way more conversations with kids, trying to connect with them, trying to have like-minded interests and things like that than I would have ever had I done the easier work of just being able to spend time with them, high-five them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think like energy can't be created nor destroyed, right? So I think being an educator, especially a Black male educator, it moves through everything that we are and everything that we do, right? So when Brother Greg was talking about being in a grocery store, if I'm out in the street, if I'm anything that I'm doing, and one of the blessings for me is that now running a business, the employees at my shop are my former middle school students.
Wow.
Right. So to see, bruh, I might get emotional, right? But to be able to see them blossom in that way, right? And taking care of it and understand how the energy and what the energy actually can do. Bruh, it is absolutely amazing. So for me, being able to still work with them and get that energy from them and learn from them and teach, you know what I'm saying? That has been keeping me in the loop or keeping me motivated. Cause that is the most, to see them as adults moving, grinding, coming to work on time, running the shop, that has been bruh, out of this world, out of this, you can't even, I can't even put it into words. I start fumbling when you
it's watching the grasshopper fly. You remember them, being born, and it's in a sense educationally. You met them when they were kind of fugly and just kind of all over the place, and you help to mold them and shape them, and then now you have them in the real world, and then they're still blossoming under your tutelage. I mean, that's a legacy in itself right there. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why it's deep and it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
For me, I'm still in the classroom, so to speak. So though being virtually. And the way I connect with my students is I've had them for the last 3 years. I'm sorry. I've had them for the last 3 years. And so I normally just sing to them. I get to do that as a music teacher. I mean, there's some things different teachers have, and my thing is glasses, and I sing to my students. You know, every school that I've worked at, I was able to be a part of the morning team or the afternoon team, and I would sing our students in and out, and I literally learn their names over 2 months, and I would sing them in with their parents. As they walk in the door, I would sing their name and sing something special.
Man, we need to make that go viral, man. You about to have me tear up over here, man. You over here singing names as they come in.
That's what I do. I still do that now. You know, even virtually, I'll see them come in and I'll sing their names in, and I'll sometimes if I know the parent, I'll sing the parent's name in, and and they're like, oh, it's Mr. Brown. Blah, 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 blah. So I get to connect with them musically because music is a universal language, and so it just takes them to the places that they felt before physically, even though we are distance apart. But the music itself kind of gives them I remember that feeling. Yeah, I do feel better because he said my name and he sang it to me, and he knows my name for real. Yeah, he knows me. He understands. So yeah, it makes a difference. I mean, the statistics that you all shared, and I want to share one real quick, is that Black male teachers only make up 2% of the educational system in the United States.
Yeah.
The reason why I went into teaching as a Black male is because I wanted to be a part of that 2%. I understand its impact. I didn't have a Black male teacher growing up. I would have liked to have one, but I didn't have one. But I understand our young people. I see them every day, and I said, you know what? They need fathers. They need men to be men before them. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to teach. All of that good character and integrity that you display, that a man would display at home with his wife and with his family, that all comes out in the classroom. And the kids get it. And they're influenced by it. They see too much out here in the world, but they could see us in the classroom and get to see us for a long time. You know what I'm saying? At least 6 hours a day, depending upon the classes we teach. And so that has an impact. And I understand the generational impact that it has. So that's why I do it.
Hey, Greg, listen, all of you, I'm going to tell you right now, and before someone else jumps in, I'm going to tell you we're going to have to split this show up, and I'm going to take some of all these sound bites and have all of y'all out there on social media with all these sound bites, because y'all are kicking some knowledge. Y'all are preaching, man. And I think a lot of people need to hear more from you, because as you realize now, you're not unsung heroes anymore. People are like, man, that's the Black teacher over there, man. I mean, and pointing look at him go. Y'all practically have capes on your back right now, especially, hey, man, take my kids, man. I'm perfectly happy with your kids being in your care. My kids being in your care. Matter of fact, just take them. They can be yours from now on, just because we've been with them for 24/7 since March. We tired, dog.
I have a parent that I see on a regular basis, well, not on a regular basis, but even virtually. Now, before COVID happened, we would see each other at the end of the day or in the beginning of the mornings, and she would say, high five. You're it, right? Even virtually, now that the school year has started, she'll come in the camera. She say, Mr. Brown, you're it. And I'll say, yes, ma'am. And we trade off her son. So, yes.
Yeah.
Let me just put a plug. Let me put a plug on there, if you don't mind, Barry. Let me just say, I have to say this. We need more Black men in education. We are desperate for more Black men in education. And I'm saying this is important. We see what's going on at the top. I'm not trying to get political, but we see what's going on at the top. What Black men also do, they not only show Black and brown children something different in the building, but they show white children something different in the building. And so I think what we have to do as a country is find out as men, this is really a time of reckoning. This is a lot going on. 2020 is going to be a year we're going to talk about for the next 50 years. But this is an opportunity. Some school districts, the one I work in, if you interested, reach out to me. Find Barry, will have information and all that. But there are certain school districts like the one that I'm in now that allow alternate paths towards teaching. So if you are a Black male and you say, you know what, I see what's going on in this nation. I see that, and I hate to, I'm not trying to get political, but the guy at the top right now wants to make sure that The 1619 project is erased from school. Want to make sure diversity training, that sort of stuff is erased from school. Who's going to stop that tide but Black males and Black women in education? So what I'm saying is, if you ever thought about teaching and education, if you ever for one moment thought maybe you could make a difference in education, find a school district that gives alternate opportunities for advancement, alternate opportunities for certification. The district that I'm in, you don't have you can teach and you can be rated as a conditional teacher working hard. And trust me, if you're a Black male, they're gonna work with you. They're gonna work with you. They're gonna work with you. They're gonna work with you like you would. I mean, they're gonna work with you. If you can get there and let them work with you,
make it work.
they're gonna make it work. And if 2 years in, they like what you're doing, they will certify you as an educator and you are good to go. It is easier now than it has ever been before. So I'm begging. I just wanted to plug this. I'm begging. If you are a Black man and you are listening to this show and you ever thought about teaching, you ever thought about it, this is the time. Find a school district that does conditional certification. Find a school district that does alternative track towards certification. If you need to know, reach out to me. I will help you. These brothers on the call will help you. We need help. The brothers in education need help. Some of us are the only Black men in our building. I can't even go to lunch without another Black man. I mean, with another Black man. Some of us I just need another Black man in my building. So this is the time. I'm begging y'all. That's my only plug. If you ever thought about it, do it now. Like now, we need you. We need you now.
Look, and I want to hold on 1 second. I want to. Man, look, you got me fired up over here, kid. Because it's like, okay, so I'm gonna play. I'm on both sides here because I'm feeling, but I got as the host, I got to be real. So, how do we retain brothers? It's only 2% of y'all out there. So, 2%. Now, are people coming and going, or it's just we are never recruited the right way? Give me some feedback on that, because I've heard some horror stories where there were folks, man, I just couldn't do it no more, man. I just had to roll on out, man. I just wasn't for me. So give me the real of both sides, because I need to have an understanding. Brother Victorius, I see you over there with your head like, man, look, I got something to say, brother. So I want everybody to comment on that. I mean, because I need to hear both sides.
We got some horror stories. I
think it's important to keep in mind, like it's an art and a science, right? Like education is not just something that you can just jump into and be like, oh, I'm good. Like, nah, right? You got to study this, right? And I think I've always been a proponent of, one, we got to make education cool, right? So it has to be something that is attractive to young people. So it has to be as attractive as being a basketball player or a football player. And I always use the analogy when I'm in the classroom that, you see the cool, you see this dripping on me. You know what I'm saying? So like, you too can do this, young man. Right? Like, so it's just the conversation of, one, is this taking it seriously, right? I remember when I had a coworker, I taught at an all-boys school probably like a decade ago, Possibility Prep, and I had a white coworker, a white woman. And of course, I study my craft. Like, this ain't something that I'm just coming out the blue. Anything that I'm teaching the young people, I study. I try to make sure that I'm, up with research and all that. And so she says to me, she's having trouble in her classroom. I wasn't necessarily having that trouble in my classroom. And she said, oh, it's easy for you because you're a Black man. And I looked at her furious. I said, what? Don't disrespect me like that.
That was disrespectful, actually.
Like, don't disrespect me in a way like I ain't studying, like I ain't learning. Like, here who's struggling, you know what I'm saying? Who's trying to get it together. And so I think that, one, especially as Black men, like we welcome, I'm with you, Ken. Like, welcome in here, like understand, like we need y'all, but at the same time, like you got to be on your square. When you come in the building, you're the only man. Like, you could be the only man in it. Get on your square. Like, understand what it means. Understand that you're a role model. Understand what it means. Yeah, and it means extra weight on our shoulders. Hell, young, it is so much weight. Like, it is. Like, it's certain things. All my students, my friends on Facebook and Instagram, I can't even say stuff because I know they listening. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything matters. You know what I'm saying? Our lives are different because we're educated at all times, right? Yeah. Except when I'm hanging with my man Tsanonda and we chilling. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. You can chill. Right. That's not get out of jail free card. Yeah. Well,
and the kids still found out and they say you're cool.
Yeah.
Look, but let me echo some of Brother Victorious' comments and also what Brother Ken said. Like, there is absolutely a need for Black males to be a part of this system. And I said in the beginning that I'm a former educator, and it's funny. I wish Ken, man, look, Mac, I wish y'all were around back then, Ken. I wish these new fangled rules to keep us in were there, because I was on a conditional contract with city schools, and then I had 3 years. And again, it's on me. I should have done what I was supposed to do, and I didn't do it. So I was supposed to finish up my education, get my teaching classes and things like that underway. Got that taken care of. Passed my praxis 1, flying colors, all that type of stuff. Didn't pass the praxis 2. So I get this letter, and it's like, yeah, look, it's about to be over for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you only got a couple months to get this done. So I was like, well, look, here are my Praxis 1 scores. Here are my classes. I got A's in all my classes. Praxis 1 is killing. Instead of taking all my educational courses, I got my master's degree in human services during that time. So I was like, look, you give me the summer, I promise I can get all this stuff done. Like, look, here are my transcripts, all this other type stuff. And it just didn't happen. They kind of said, no, your conditional contract is up. But I'm saying that to say, again, to kind of circle back around to what Victoria said, I was supposed to be on my grind. I was supposed to have that done. Like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, you got your master's. All right, pat on the back, all that other type of stuff. But if you were going to be in this education field, you should have taken your educational courses like you were supposed to. You're supposed to have that Praxis 2 finished by this time. That's the contract that you signed. But that being said, I also believe that the impact of Black men in the classroom was tremendous. And at this time, because I was a teacher, again, like Vic said, I'm seeing kids who I taught in kindergarten, in 4th grade, and now these folks are either like going to college. Some of them preparing to graduate from college and things of that nature. So it's also important to, if you are not able to be inside the system, that you find ways to have positive impact on the system as well. You make sure that next crop of teachers know how amazing it is. I love every minute of being a teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. I actually started as a paraeducator. So I was a teacher's assistant first, then I became a teacher, and now I actually do consulting with city schools. So it kind of everything comes around full circle. But the reality is, it's important to have an impact on the school system as much as possible. One, because there's such a level of, even though a lot of times we think that there's not an understanding of the weight of being a teacher, there is a respect for teaching that is superhero status. It really is superhero status. And I think we have to push that a little bit more. We have to make sure that parents truly understand. And I think this pandemic has given them an opportunity to do that, to truly understand what teachers bring to the table, teachers and administrators, right? Because the reality is, when you are in leadership positions, you're able to, again, guide young folks who are coming in, because again, coming into your first year of teaching is not going to be a cakewalk. Right, but you have to make sure that you're going through. It's not a game, right? It's not a cakewalk. Like it takes you a minute to build up that stamina for teaching, but it has to be respected. Like Vic was saying, man, it has to be respected. You got to understand the studies that go behind this. You got to understand that it's something that is obviously important, but it's also doable. Right? It's doable. So we got to kind of, lace up these bootstraps, man, jump in the trenches and do what we have to do. And the last thing I want to say is, some of the words that you all said were so powerful. I think Brother Ken talked about relationships. That makes me think about like connectivity. Brother Greg talked about legacy. He threw that word out. And Brother Victorious talked about energy. So when you think about that, like the impact that Black men, Black fathers, Black teachers, Black administrators can have on the school community and then the communities at large, it's powerful and it's necessary. So we have to make sure that all those things are on point, on par, and we're ready to dive in and do the work. Again, you talk about relationships, legacy, energy. That's a big deal, man. And it's up to us to make sure that it happens.
Yeah. Awesome. And one of the reasons why I think that it's interesting dynamic to recruit and retain Black male teachers is because, number one, most men assume that teaching and education is a female space. They see it as a female space when it's clearly not. Men educate each other all the time. That's why we go to the barbershop, right? That's why we holler at our boys and make conversation. But they don't really take that, or what we call an education code switch. They don't necessarily code switch that into, I can do that same thing with children. I can do that same thing with young people. I can do those same things with high schoolers in a particular subject. And so I think for a lot of men, somebody has to literally tell them and share with them, hey, bro, do you know you can do that in the classroom? And here's how. you know you're already teaching, right?
Hmm.
And they're like, oh,
Wow.
I didn't know. Well,
Wow.
and then for someone that I've talked to, they've actually considered it, but it was the apprehension of it all. Well, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I can be qualified. I don't know if I'm, for lack of a better word, worthy enough to teach our kids because of some things that maybe I have done in the past. Or maybe my work background is not teaching worthy. And I have to explain to them, it doesn't matter what your background is. Take the courses necessary, get the training you need, and we want to see you in the classroom. You know, for a lot of men that I've talked to, it's just a matter of confidence building to say that, hey, I could take the skills that I have as a teacher in life and take them and translate them into the classroom. That's one of the joys I love is teaching other teachers, especially artists and people in music, that, hey, you can teach.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a formal teacher you're thinking. It's taking what you already do in the studio and how you're giving instruction as a producer or as an artist and taking those same skill sets and transferring them to teaching and lesson planning and, you know, the whole art and science of it, as Brother Victorius has said. And so I think once we come in the building and we kind of share with each other as men, as we hype it up amongst ourselves as men, that teaching is a real profession that we can do and that we're wanted in and that we're valued in. Sometimes, like as Brother Victorius or I think Ken said, that first year, Sonata said, that first year going to be a humding. It's going to humble. It's going to humble your ego. Especially when you think, oh, I got this. I can do this. Nah, you need to learn. You need to find your good mentor and hold your mule, you know, hold yourself for the whole year. But once you get through it, you know, you'll be all right. My first year was off the chain. I ain't gonna lie. But I think for Black men, it needs to be hyped to them. It needs to be shared and made cool for them. And I think a lot of men would do it. They don't see it as something that's for them as a Black man, for them as a male. Education is for us. It's for everybody, and they're included.
Look, I got to jump in here real quick because and you brought up something, Gregory, that you made me think about when you just mentioned showing men what they can do. And someone else said, like, for the longest time, it was thought of as a woman's profession. Yeah. So there's a lot of that thought mentality that's still out there, where it was like I know for me, and I'm a tad bit older, just older-ish. You know, I ain't no old dude, but I'm just, you know, don't let the grays fool you. But I'm just, you know, I stress. But you know, I remember my father when I wanted to take typing in school. He's nah, man, that's garbage class. Man, you ain't take no daggone typing. You know, teach yourself how to type. You know, he brought a book home from the library. Here you go, and I'm still the slowest typer ever. But I mean, I know how to do it, but he saw in his mentality, nah, man, you ain't gonna do that because that's not for you. You're gonna do something else completely. How do you speak to our community about teaching when it's kind of frowned upon in our community? Like everything you're saying is good, but how do you change that mentality of someone who's been taught from all the way through? And guess from what they see, all I see is primarily women in this profession. How do you convey that message of, listen, this is good for you too, and you're helping your community?
Well, for me, I'm there. I'm in it. I'm right there with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm a teacher. I'm there. I'm there with the kids every day. So my presence is an example. But then I also share with them how do you interact with your family? You know, I kind of delve into how do they interact with people? How do they interact at the barbershop? How do you interact with other guys? How do you interact with other children in the community? And then listening to their stories, it's a matter of translating those stories into the classroom.
Yeah.
When you did this is what occurred. And you didn't know that's what you were doing, but this is what happens in education. And so it's just a way of slowly getting them to the light bulb coming on, like, oh man, I do that. And that does translate in, it's a new perspective.
I also think with Barry, I think what you're talking about too is you're talking about this idea of like what does it mean to be a man? What is masculinity? And does masculinity and manhood can it be associated with education in that way, right? So I think now we're jumping into a conversation on patriarchy and what is it in like manhood, men don't do this and men do that, and, you know, that kind of thing. And I think part of that is, as Gregory said, like being present, right? But then the other part is being very intentional about destroying those concepts, right? So I'm very intentional about it. And the way I'm intentional about it, for me, everybody has different ways, but I make sure that I speak about it with young people. I have if you ever study the Nation of Islam, right, they dress a certain way and they wear suits and they groomed a certain way. And the reason why they do that is they say that a person in the dark should be able to understand and see what the light looks like, right? So it's in complete opposition to what, you know, so you always got a suit on, even when it's 100 degrees outside, they suited and booted, right? For me, I have an opposite approach. Like for me, I go to school as an administrator, a vice principal, a master's degree, and a whole bunch of other stuff dressed just like this, with a t-shirt on, some jeans, some shoes, right? Because I want them to be able to see themselves in me, right? But there's other days I might dress up or put something else on. But my biggest thing is that young person who struggled, I want them to be able to, as much as he can, I'm getting old, right? But like, I want them to be able to like, see like, oh, they got to see themselves in me, right? So that when I say something, it means something to you, right? Because as Ken was saying, we was talking about Trump a little bit earlier, he can't say anything that I'm going to listen to because I cannot relate to him. And I automatically believe that anything that you're going to say out your mouth is false. If we are to dispel like this myth around education and what does it mean and whether or not it's a male or female profession, we first have to be visually appealing to young people. That's why LeBron is. That's why Jordan is, right? Because they can see themselves, right? They have to be able to see that in educators. And then that's how I feel like we dispel that myth, right?
Hold on, let me jump in real quick. And hold on one second, because Brother Vic, I got to say this to you. A couple of years ago when we first met, I will be the first to admit, when I first saw you and I found out you were an assistant principal, or you might have been a principal at the time, and I saw you had the Scully on, you had the jean jacket and the jeans, and I'm like, this dude a principal, you know? But then I saw your swag, I saw your style, I saw everything, and I was like, huh. Okay, I see it. I see it. So, and Ken, please go ahead. But I want to jump into that because that visual was serious. Because growing up, we were always looking for folks in the suits when it came to being a teacher. That was what we saw, and I was like, man, I ain't really trying to wear no suit every day. That ain't really my thing. But to see somebody that looked like me, that didn't necessarily look like a person suited up on a regular basis, that was powerful. And I was a grown man.
But that's on purpose, right? Because I think a lot of times displaying that, right, or dispelling the myth is based on, I am working for you. I serve young people. Everybody else can get it how they want it, right? Like they can get it if they catch up, right? But my thing is, how do I get more educators? Is that I inspire young people to follow up, right? And so adults, it might take a little bit longer for them. I get it all the time. Like, what you dress like that for? Why you I'm like, it's not for you. It's for that dude over there. Right, it's for him, and I think that is super important.
Go ahead, Ken.
Well, to your point, I had a bigger point, but I want to say this really quickly. I have a brother. His name is Corey Carter. He was Teacher of the Year at Baltimore County a couple of years ago. He's at UMBC right now on a project really empowering Black males in general. Great guy. But at a couple of years ago, we both were in the same. We were coordinators in Baltimore County schools. Coordinating this grant. Baltimore County got a big grant. So Corey was running it at one school. I was running it at another. But we would be at these PDs together a lot. One day, Corey walked into the PD with a hoodie on that said, like, it wasn't like Black Lives Matter, but it was something like woke or just something. And he was in a PD session. He had a hoodie on and jeans. And I had, I'm suited and booted. You see me, I got my bow tie on all the time. That's what I do. So I looked at Corey. I'm like, man, you're like, like, how you come here looking like that? And he said, it's important that people understand, it's important that we are allowed to be who we are in other spaces. He said, that's important, that we are allowed to be who we are in other spaces. They have to accept us. They have to know that intelligence isn't necessarily an outfit. Intelligence is what I provide in the building. And I learned that lesson from that brother. That was what I was going to say to Brother Vic's point. But fast forward, this idea, if you think about it, we're talking about Black males in education. We as a culture need to figure out how important education is for us and for our advancement, and then decide whether or not we're going to allow that to be given into the hands of like the predominant is white women. And this is I'm not against white. I'm not against them at all. But please hear what I'm saying. If it's that important to us, and you know that there is a 70% chance that a minority in this country, it's about a 74% chance, 73% chance that a minority in this country can go K to 12 and never have a teacher of color, not just a black male, but never have a teacher of color. I think that sort of data should cause us as a culture to see how important it is. If this thing is important, then I'm going to be there. If my child's basketball game is that important, then I'm going to be there. If my child's conference, I will be there. So then if their education is that important, then we need to figure out how we're going to be there. And it's not just being there as a PTA associate. It's not just being there playing basketball after school with the kids. Sometimes being there means I need to figure out what alternative track or what I need to do to get in the classroom so I can disrupt the systems that are working against kids that look like me. Because I can't say that education is important for our culture, but then subcontract the teaching.
Come on now.
Oh,
come on now. That's it.
hold on. Break that statement down.
Yeah.
Subcontract the
it.
teaching. Give me
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
That's what I can't do that. I can subcontract cleaning my house because that's not that important. I can subcontract washing my car because I don't have to do that. But I'm not giving the responsibility of educating my black child to a system that's not designed for his success. Yeah. So if anything, we should see that as a culture and say, we've got to haul-tail into education. We got to haul-tail in there. And if it means we got to bring our own support systems, if it means that, hey, there's 3 black people that just started that school over there. Listen, here's brother Greg's number, his brother Sonata's number, his brother Vic's number. Call him. If you got a problem, call him. If you feel like you got a little microaggression happening in the building, call him. If you need to figure out how to put your grades in the grade book, call him. We need to figure out what we need to do so that we are not, if we value education, stop saying we value education, but we're giving it over to a whole nother culture and then trying to fix what they broke when the child comes back home.
Well,
hey, bro, that's 100% true. You can't teach. I stamp everything he just said. I'm gonna stop Tsanonda because I know y'all.
I mean, look, I'm sitting back like everything that you all saying is on point and on par, and I think that it lends to one thing that I'm learning. My mentor, man, Dr. Lamar Shields, man, the Cambio group does amazing work throughout the country and beyond. Yeah. He has made a shift. He talked about making the shift from. We talk a lot about creating safe spaces to do different things, whether it's in education or, mental health, which is what I'm an advocate of and things of that nature. And what I do the vast majority of my work in, we have to make the shift from safe spaces to courageous spaces. And everything that you all are saying is exactly what that lends to. We got to call a thing a thing. We have to make sure that we are given as much input as possible, that we understand the impact down the road. And again, just put simply, we got to make education cool. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to make it something that, but not just cool in the way of, all right, yeah, it's cool to get it, but it's cool to impart our learnings, our understandings, the vast knowledge that we have into each other. And I love the fact that Brother Ken just said, like he talked about, we got to be willing to pick up that phone, and we got to be willing to talk about classroom management, and we got to be willing to talk about having the knowledge and the skill set to be able to do whatever it is that we need to do academically, socially, with regard to classroom management and the whole 9, because it's going to be important for us. Again, we got to kind of be jacks of all trades. And if that's what it takes to make sure that our kids get exactly what it is that they need, then we need to do that. And then on the opposite side of it, we also have to make sure that we bring the parents along too, because one of the biggest issues that we have in schools is parent engagement. You go to any school, it's parent engagement, parent engagement, parent engagement. So we have to work on making sure that the relationships that we're building with young people, we're extending that relationship building to the parents as well. So what that's going to mean is meeting them where they are, figuring out things that we have to do. I know, just real quick, I was a community school coordinator in a school at one time. And one of the things that it takes a lot of, for some reason, people want to give you grant money and things like that, but they don't want to give you grant money for food, right? That's one of the big things that parents like to come. They like to come if you're going to have a nice little spread, right? So let's get that spread out there, put this money in for this food, get these parents involved, and then we're able to kind of teach them what Common Core is. Because folks are like, man, I'm at home with my kids, I don't know what Common Core is. So find this nice little spread. Let's throw some common coin there. But it's important to just make sure that we wrap it up right.
I know we getting close to like, as it relates to parent engagement, right? That conversation around what engagement looks like. I like the way you said that, right? Because I think engagement looks so many different ways for so many different people. And I think one of the things, and I think that goes to Ken's point as it relates to the system, right? Because parents don't necessarily trust the system that is teaching their young people because they came through the same system that did the exact same thing that's happening to their kids, right?
Sometimes the same food.
Yeah. So what I try to make sure I focus on is like what always worked for me is for me to be able to separate myself from the system, right? And how do we build those very individual relationships with parents so that they understand that they're not a part, that I'm not teaching this whole system, right? It's really this interpersonal relationship. This is me and you, this one-on-one kind of thing. And I think also educators, school systems have to look at different ways that parents engage, right? Because I always look at my life, right? Like I was an honor roll student, but if my mother never came up, like I can't remember my mother ever coming up to the school. Her parent engagement was making sure when I was at home, you get what you need to get done, right? And so because she worked, she grinded, she still catch the bus, right, to work, right? So like those kind of things I think is very important because I think sometimes Kunjufu wrote this book called Middle Class Teachers, Poor Students or something like that. And it talks about this ideology of educators having this air about them when it comes to working with parents, right? Like this idea, like I got a college degree, I'm teaching in the hood, you take what I get, like get out of here. Like you from the same, like don't you gotta change to like think you better. Get out of here.
Oh, Brother Vic. All right, so hold on to that one because that's the next show right there, man. Because that's like deep. I mean, like you just took it there. I was like, I never even thought about it because I've seen that before. Because I'm being the savior here, coming into your school trying to take care of you. You ain't trying to listen to me.
Yeah,
and then
servant. Like you people, they gotta understand that. Like as an educator, you are a servant. You serve.
Yes.
You serve them. Whatever they need, they serve it. And so you come at it from that. That's how I move. Like if you ain't coming at it from that vantage point, like you a savior and not a servant, you wow, like that's that don't
you got it faded, right? You're tripping, dog. You just straight out there tripping. All right. Last thoughts, fellas. I'm start at the top. All right, Brother Vic, you you just kind of left a gem on there because that's what our next show is going to be about. Breaking down the system. I'm like throwing that in quotation marks, circling and everything else because you guys are actually giving us more insight into what teachers are going through. Because as a parent, I'm sending my child there in order to get an education, but a lot of times I forget that, and you guys use the word adapt. You're amazing at adapting. Our culture, we have to adapt because especially when you're talking about the way people dress. Like, so I know if I'm in the corporate America, I need to dress a certain way. I need to sound a certain way. I need to walk and talk a certain way. But then you're also talking about adapting, and I still got to be me. I remember when I got fed up in corporate America, and I was like, I can't play the game no more. I got to be me. So I'm not necessarily going the corporate route, but I'm going the route that I want to go in order to help me build my own personal business because I just couldn't do it anymore. So I want next time we get together, and hopefully you guys can all come back. I want to break down the system and talk about it. And we didn't even get into it much as the COVID elephant in the room on the shoulder and everything else, how that's affecting other folks, even from a mental, because someone else brought out mental illness. I mean, because if you don't have time away from, let's say, your children or some mental time to yourself, that could wreak havoc on your psyche. Those are triggers coming in because you're with your kids 24/7, and you normally used to get at least 7-8 hours. And some people with traffic was like their downtime. So we're not driving to work anymore. So it's like, 24/7. So we're going to talk about that on the next show. But just final thoughts from each one of you. Brother Gregory, go.
Hey, everybody! I just want to say to everybody out there, remember, education is for you. You're being educated in some form or fashion every day. Choose to be intentional about what you're going to receive in education. Can't wait to see you next time. That's it. That's all I'm saying.
Brother Ken.
Nicole Hannah-Jones wrote the 1619 Project, which I think is really a landmark. She did it in partnership with the New York Times. When we studied slavery, it was about the slaves kind of wanting to come over. The pictures in the book showed them having fun, playing in the yard and enjoying their lives on the plantations. She told the truth. She said it in a different way, and she partnered with New York Times, and they really, really did a big job on it. It was so important that it went all the way back, all the way up to the top, where President Trump, by name, spoke about that program and that writing, and made sure that it was not going to be put, not just that, but anything related to diversity, which he equated with being anti-American. Catch that. Anything that he equated with diversity in 1619 Project and specifically, he did not want and does not want in education. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that we need to value our education and how we are taught. We need to value what we're doing and what's coming into our children's minds and what's coming into our children's hearts. So much to the point where we're actually flooding ourselves. This COVID thing should reverse what we do. We should be flooding schools, figuring out how to teach in them, figuring out how to do alternate opportunities for engagement, alternate opportunities for teacher certification, doing whatever we can do, because there is a force that's